Okay, hello and welcome back. Thank you for joining me again. We're here for the second lesson of our Hebrew Aleph Bet. In the previous lesson, we have covered the first 6 letters, Aleph through Vav, as well as some of the Nikud. We spoke about Kamatz, we spoke about Patach, we spoke about Tzere, and we spoke about Chirik. So we can do a quick recap. Aleph, the first letter, no sound as it is, but it likes to be a good friend of either Patach or Kamatz to make the sound Ah. Then we have the Bet. The Bet is one of our special letters that has a special ability. If the dot inside gets removed, it becomes a vet. So here the sound is B, and without a dot the sound is V. Of course, we can add an Nikud. Now the sound is Va. Okay, then we had Gimel, the sound is G, Daled, D. Then we had Hey, which acts pretty similarly to an Aleph. The only difference is in the pronunciation, that is, that Hey is like an Aleph, but with more air coming out of the throat. Right? So let's say we add Patach to the both of them. This would be A, and this would be Ha. Ha, ha, hi, hi. And actually, we will see later that hi is actually written like this. But we're not there yet. So this is what we covered. And then we said that we had a bunch of Nikud, which is the Hebrew vowel system, right? We had, let's use the letter Daled. Daled. So we had Patach and Kamatz, both making the sound A. So this would be Da. We had Tzerei, which make the sound A. With a Daled, it's Day, De. And then we had at the end of the lesson also Chirik, which is just a dot making the sound E. That is the vowel E. So with the Daled it will be D. The sound is just one sound. I just gave a few examples of the equivalent in English, but the sound is D. E. Okay. I would like to add at this opportunity that like we have a Patach and his brother, the Kamatz, which are making the exact same sound, A. The Tzere, sound E, also has a brother, that is the Segol. Just one more dot on the bottom and the sound is the same. Still E. So remember, either two dots side by side is E, or 3 dots, also E. Okay, and the final letter we've learned in the last class is Vav, which was a little bit more tricky, but you still got it. You were a champ last lesson. So let's recap. Letter Vav, without anything, by itself, or of course it can have an Nikud on the bottom, but without any dots, not on the side and not on top, right? Just a good old Vav that sometimes looks like this. The sound is V, also like the letter Bet without a dot, V. So, and we can treat it as any other letter. So we can add nikud, this would be va, this would be ve, and this, still ve, you're correct, well done. But the vav can also be a vowel. If it's in its vowel form, the way you'll be able to distinguish it and to tell is that there will be either a dot on top or a dot on the left side. Don't worry about confusing, because there will never be both. And if there is one of them, there will never be an additional nikud here. Because the moment the vav becomes a vowel like that, it stops being a regular letter, it stops being a consonant, and it stops having the sound V. So dot on the left side is U, the sound is U, and dot on top, sound is O. Okay, so we have done our recap, let's keep on going. So, the next letter in line is the letter Zain. Zain, English. Z, the sound is Z. Z. Now I have a question, and this is some of our last lessons material. What if I write our letter Zain, and then I add this? How would you read this? If you said ze, you are correct. Now let me add another letter just to spice it up. What about now? How would you read this two-letter combination now? Think about it. If you said ze, still, you would be correct. You actually read it the exact same way as you would this. But, as we said, in Hebrew, we don't really like to end words without or with nikud on the last letter. So we like to add this final letter to kind of close it off. And the final letter will be with no nikud. It's just a way to close off the word. And lots of time we are using our friend hey for that purpose. That's why we don't pronounce it. It's not ze ha, and it's not zhe, right? This hey at the end doesn't have a pronunciation, like lots of letters that we add at the end, especially hey and aleph. Okay? These two do not have a pronunciation in this context. Okay? So this would be ze. And ze is Hebrew for that. This. Okay? So you can point at something and say ze, that, or this. Okay? Letter Zayin. Next letter is chet. Chet. Sometimes it's a bit hard for non-native speakers to pronounce this letter. Chet. Chet. I'm kind of scratching my throat a little bit. And in English, I would either some people just use age, but notice that it's not hey, right? It is not hey. So it's not het. I'm not just pushing air through. I am sort of scratching my throat a little bit, right? So it's more chet, 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 not het, chet. Okay, so some people write it as C, age. Some people write it as age, but of course there is no such letter in the English language, but in Hebrew there is, and it's a crucial one. So please practice saying the word, the letter chet. It's a very important letter. Let's keep going. We almost flipped the chet upside down and we got ourselves the letter tet. Sometimes also drawn like this. Letter tet. Okay, pretty simple. Tet, tet. What sound are you hearing? T, ta, t, t. Without any liquid would be t. Okay, how would you read it now? Ta is correct. What about now? Sorry, now? T is correct. And speaking of T, our next letter is a very nice letter, one of my favorites. Our next letter is Yud. Yud. Yud is written sometimes like this, sometimes like this, but it's basically like a Vav, but shorter. Like a Vav, but shorter. Okay? So, letter Yud, y. The sound is y. It's kind of a vowel, but it acts as a normal letter, even though it is sort of a vowel. So, for example, if I write this, right, a daled with a chirik, how would you read it? D is correct. Now, if I write this, how would you read it? If you are reading D still, you would be correct. There is no difference between D and D. And even D, there is no difference. So either a chirik or a yud or both have the exact same sound. But remember, the order of reading a Hebrew word is letter, vowel, letter, vowel. Careful not to skip any vowels. For example, this is not D anymore. There is a daled, there is a yud, but there is also a patach. So again, in Hebrew, letter, vowel, and then we move over. Letter, and we have no vowel, so we finish. Really, really simple. So let's try reading it together. First letter, D, daled, D. The vowel is patach, A, D, A, da. And then, how do we read the yud by itself without anything else? Y, 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 y. Da, I, die, die. Sounds like die, but we're not that morbid here. Die in Hebrew means stop. Exclamation points. Or enough, right? Die is stop or enough. Yeah, so here you go. Now you know the letter Yud. Let's keep going. The next letter we have is the letter Kaf. Kaf. Now the letter Kaf, you can hear what sound it makes. Kaf, K, K. Now, a little bit like the letter Bet. Do you remember the letter Bet? That by itself makes the sound B, but no dot makes the sound V. Well, the letter Kaf has the same story. With the dot makes the sound K, like English K. Without the dot makes the sound ch. Ch. Does that sound familiar? Didn't we have already a letter that sounds like ch? Well, you are correct. We did have a letter that sounds like ch. Chet. So, for the sound ch, we have chet and we have kaf. The difference between them? There is no difference. It's the exact same sound, but a different letter. And different words will use a different letter. It's a grammar thing. So again, the story is that once there was a difference in the pronunciation, but nowadays this has changed. This time it passed. Now we pronounce them the same. So we have chet, we have chaf, pronounced the same. Okay, let's keep going. Oh, wonderful. The next letter is actually a final letter. So it's not an official letter, but it's the final form of a normal letter. And I'll explain. There are a few letters that have a final form to them. Meaning, if this letter appears at the end of the word, the final letter will be used. Don't get too confused because it's actually really simple. There are only, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these. Just 5. And they look pretty identical to the normal form. So there isn't much place for confusion. So the final letter for kaf, or more correctly for chaf, because kaf doesn't have a final letter. If a word ends with a kaf, k sound, we will just use the kaf, the normal version. But if a word ends with a chaf, ch sound, then we use the final letter of chaf, which look like this. Now, the thing is, with all but one final letters, it's really simple the way that it's written, and it's really simple to remember. For me, what I like to give my students to remember is that you can just simply look at the final letter and then take this bottom part, because it always sticks down. That's the kind of the thing of the final letters. So let's say we have the line here, right? Line of text. And then in final letters, they stick down. That's how we know it's a final letter. You will see it. So, and with final letters, you take this bottom part that sticks out, you bring it back up, and you are left with the original letter. So you know it's a chaf. Okay? If you don't get it, you'll get it in some time. Don't worry about it. Let's keep going. Next letter, lamed. Lamed. Sound l. L. We have la. We have li. And we have le. Great. Next letter, mem. The sound is m. M. And this letter also had a final form, mem sofit. Final mem looks like this. Basically, just a box. This is the final mem. Appears at the end of the word. Okay, let's try to read some words, shall we? So, at our first lesson, we read the word for father. Abba. Abba, father. Now, let's read the word for mother. Can you give it a go? So here we have Aleph with a chirik. The sound of the chirik is E. What is Aleph with a chirik? If you said E, you would be correct, because Aleph by itself doesn't really have a sound, so it's kind of waiting to be paired with a vowel to make a sound. So in this case, the sound is E. E, ma, and then that's it. The only reason the aleph is here is to end the word, because in Hebrew we don't really like to end words with a vowel, with an ikud. So, ima, ima, mom is ima. And what about this word? This would be e. And what is this letter? Do you remember it? The box? Yes, that is a final mem. And this word is M. M, like English letter M, but M also means a mother, just in a bit of a different variation of the word. Okay, wonderful. So I think it's enough for today. Today we've learned all the letters from Zayin up until Mem Sofit. Tomorrow we can continue from Nun, but I think for today, great work, well done. You are progressing fantastically, and we are actually already halfway there. And again, it's only gonna get easier, and as the more you go, the more you practice, and yeah, you're doing a great job. So keep going, well done, proud of you, and take care. See you soon. Bye bye. להתראות.